Hi, I'm Meagan tonight, and my partner is Matt Kaczorowski, and we're here from Rome Free Academy on November 5th, 2004 in Rome, New York, and we're working on the New York State Oral History Project. We're here to interview veteran Arthur Gilchrist about his experiences and Desert Storm in his military life. Where did you go to high school?
Went to high school in Syracuse at Fowler High School, and it's right on the west side of Syracuse.
What year did you graduate?
1982.
Did you go to college?
Yep. Went from Fowler to spent a little time at Syracuse University. Then I went to the University of Maryland, which was we had a detachment in Europe, the University of Maryland, through the European courses we took while I was on base there. They had a detachment.
What made you decide to enlist in the military?
I had left, was trying to find a job in the local area. The military offered some college funds that gave me an opportunity, I thought, and I decided to join the Guard, and they had a program that gave you so much if you stayed in for 6 years, so that's what my initial commitment was, for 6 years. So I decided to go after duty from there, and didn't take the college money, but went to college under a tuition assistance program.
When you provided information for us, it said you enlisted in July of 1982. Did you have any previous military experience?
I had the Guard. I joined that in May '81, my senior year, going from my junior to senior year. I joined the Guard and did my weekend drills and did a boot camp that summer, July, from June, the beginning of June to almost September, in basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, and came back from Fort Benning, went back to high school, and finished up that January. I had enough credits I could finish up at the half-year point.
So you were 17 when you went into the Guard?
Guard, yeah.
And then how old were you when you enlisted to active duty?
19.
Did you have any special training before you went in?
No special training before I went in. When I went in, though, I learned how to become what they call 11 hotels, anti-tank. You would fire missiles at tanks. So I had a big introduction to electronics and mathematics, with figuring distances and ranges and electrical currencies. And so that was my only experience with the military, the Guard. And then when I went in the Air Force, I went into a computer background, administrative support arena with all computers. So,
have you been able to use that outside of your military?
yeah, I used we became a system administrator throughout when our career field had converted from administrative to more of a computer-based support, and became a system administrator. And then I took that and worked for the government afterwards, doing some similar things with that, and worked in personnel. So yeah, a lot of the skills I learned in the military could easily apply once I left the military.
Why did you choose to transfer from the Army National Guard to the active duty Air Force?
I left the Guard. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I used to tell people, I said it was a bunch of old guys, I thought, and I was one of the young guys. And they were Vietnam vets, and their ideals of what the military should be was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. And I didn't think they treated us well, the younger guys. But when I left the Guard, I just wanted to finish my commitment in the military. It wasn't a 20-year career type thing. At that point, I didn't think it would be.
What benefits did you feel the Air Force opened up to you that the Army didn't?
The Air Force gave me a skill. I didn't think I'd be able to shoot tanks once I got out of the Army, so it gave me some skills that I could use. A computer background. There wasn't even memory typewriters then. So when I first went in, I was introduced to computer day one, and we learned some electronic word processing, and just developed from there. It was from the birth, almost from the cradle, of computers in offices, you know, right from the birth. And we had big mainframes that would fill this room. So I got to see it at its biggest point, now to a laptop where you can sit at a desk and do what we were doing in one big room. So it was pretty neat.
When you were stationed at Griffiss Air Force Base in Rome, New York for the first time, what were some of your responsibilities on the base?
I was, got assigned to Rome Labs, and we were, at that point, we were developing cruise missiles and testing its reliability. We were testing some electronic interference. It was a real neat, the cruise missile was the first time it was almost a smart bomb. You could guide it and drop it from a plane, and it guided to the target. Now it's got much more advanced, but that was I got a chance to meet the Vice President George Bush then. He came and actually looked at it when Ronald Reagan and him, where Ronald Reagan was the president, he was the vice president. So I got a chance to meet him, and it was really impressive as a 19-year-old being part of that. So.
When you were in Italy, what type of responsibilities did you have on the base?
When I was in Naples, Italy, I was assigned to the NATO headquarters. I worked for the headquarters commandant, which was the base commander. And I had top secret clearance, so I would brief everyone. I met everyone who came on base. I gave them a briefing. I assigned them the post officer of the day, post officer of the day. I was the commander's representative in staff meetings, almost like an executive officer. It was a real, as an airman, you know, I was the lowest ranking guy on base, but I had one of the most privileged jobs on base, and they trusted me. It was a neat experience. You didn't think I'd get it right out of high school more.
When you were in Europe, did you travel on assignment a lot?
Yeah, we had, I played flight football for the Air Force while I was there, so I did that. Part of a NATO inspection team, SHAPE, and we traveled from Naples Italy. We visited all the NATO countries that had bases, and we inspect their sites and make sure they were following the headquarters rules and guidance. So, it was interesting. Got to meet people who were 19 years old in different services that were British or Greeks, and seeing how they were becoming part of their army and services and serving their country with their ideals of service. It was totally different, you know. Some were drafted and we weren't drafted, so it was a different.
Did most of the different countries, the younger kids, did they get along most of the time, or were there conflicts?
I think because they were drafted, some of them didn't want to be there, so where all the United States services were volunteer and we wanted to be there. We volunteered to be there. So you could see the difference in commitment. But for the most part, NATO was a good assignment. All the troops that were there were usually selected to be there, even if it was a foreign country. But there were some who weren't. They were drafted, and you had to deal with that a little bit.
What made working for NATO different than working for any other military installation?
I think all the different countries, all the different languages, all the different cultures. So you would one night be eating with your Italian friends, the next night you might go to a party that was just Greek, and you'd have different cuisines like baklava, and it was such a different, you got exposed to things that you never seen when you're in America. Some people have never even heard of Greek baklava, a little pastry, you know, and wow. You know, some of the dishes, you know, just the food, the culture, what people think about certain things, it was all different. You had a different spice, different flavor for your ideals.
And how do you think that people broadened your view of the world? Did they help you have a better outlook on America or on other countries?
A lot of them really thought America was still the streets were paved for gold. I mean, they really loved the ideals of Americans. Some of them didn't like how the Americans behaved in their country, but for the most part, yeah, they really envied us for our freedoms.
How did you feel when you found out you were going to Iraq?
I was scared. I was scared because I didn't know was a war, and I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know. I knew the reason we were going there were good, but I just didn't know if we were ready to go. There was a lot of young people, and we had all these exercises. We'd never had any experience. You know, where we had all these Vietnam vets who were there, and they could tell us, hey, you gotta be ready. This is what we're gonna do when we get there. They seemed to have a plan, but we didn't have that same base where we could draw and say, hey, we've done this before.
How did the war affect your family?
The first time I went, my daughter was just born, so I didn't get a chance to see her walk, or start walking. She didn't even recognize me when I came home. That was a little bit, you know, she was just born, I think 3 months old. So I was like a stranger when I came back to her. I think it made us closer. Some goodbyes were, you know, real important, I guess, as I was getting ready to leave. I wanted to make sure I said goodbye properly to some people. So I think we had been apart for a while, but when that came, it tightened us up, my brothers especially, because I'd been in the service, I'd been away from home. So when I had to leave, they really were concerned.
How long were you away from your wife and children?
We had 3. We were supposed to go over you couldn't go over for more than, at the time, they weren't sending people for more than 6 months. 120 days was the normal assignment, so 4 months each time we went.
Did you have any special training when you went to war or before you went to war and in preparation?
We would run, all the time we had exercises, preparing us for, you know, war plans, how we were going to do certain things. But when we got into the area of operation, they did set up how we were going to react to, they reinforced all the training we had. The chem gear, you know, you had to put on your gas mask, they went through all that again. They went to how you were going to guard certain facilities, call signs. It was a real structured, first weeks were really structured. You had continuity. You were relieving someone who had been there. They were telling you every day what to do, and it became part of your everyday activity. And if you didn't do it, it was noticeable. So people were watching, people were expecting you to do it, so it wasn't something you didn't want it. You made sure you had everything done because people were relying on you. The safety, you know, the big safety, everything was safety oriented.
Was everybody on base trained, or was it just the people who knew they were going?
Back in the States, they really started preparing the people who were going. They knew were going. They would give them all the chem training. They were the first priority. And then those who were going to follow afterwards were secondary trainers. They would get them after all the people who were tagged to go for training. They would get the other people afterwards. So.
What's chem training?
Chem training is chemical, biological warfare, where they actually make you put on a gas mask. If there's a bomb, where there's an agent that could create problems for you, a gas that could kill you, you could choke to death. So they had these special masks that you could use that had breathing apparatuses on them. So you breathe back and forth without no effect. They would teach how to give yourself a shot if you had a nerve agent to save your life. You know, you'd have to inject yourself, or your buddy would have to inject you.
What was the difference between Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm?
Both of them were, Desert Storm was both of them were part of the Gulf War. They were just different points in the campaign. Desert Storm was part of the war when we first went in. We were under General Schwarzkopf, he was Desert Storm. And then Desert Shield was afterwards when we put up the sanctions. When we put up the sanctions, that was part of Desert Shield. And then after that, I think came Desert Fox. And they're just names given to different phases during the war.
Your code names?
Operation names, yeah, code names, yeah.
Did you have any particular operation in connection with Desert Storm or Desert Shield that you'd like to tell us about?
I was part of the operation group while I was there, and it was pretty unique. We actually got to sit down with the pilots who were flying the missions over the bomb targets and over the no-fly zones. So I got to see what they were doing. I would give them read files that they need to read for intelligence. So it was pretty neat. I got to see the war actually being carried out, either on video when they came back and showed how they hit the targets, or by briefing, you know, hey, we hit this target, and this is what we thought the damage was.
And did you plan it out like as a whole, or did you go, well, step one's complete so we can move on and develop step two, or was it the whole plan to begin with?
There was a group of officers who sat down every day and we would plan out those days as a whole. Now there was a grand plan that was being created for somewhere else, but our portion, we planned out how we were going to do it and how we were going to react.
What was your mission when you were in Saudi Arabia?
In Saudi Arabia, I was the executive officer, admin support. I was executive officer because we had no executive officer for like 2 months while I was there. So I did that for the first 2 months. I did both duties. And then while doing that, I was also the Saudi liaison official. I was the American representative who would fill out these passes and have to get them approved by the Saudi officials so we could travel in and around the country. Also took care of the mail, customs, because there were certain things that could be mailed and certain things that couldn't be mailed. There were certain things that we weren't allowed to receive in the mail. So I was part of that sign-off, you know. I made sure that we adhered to their customs.
What were you not allowed to receive in the mail?
No alcohol, no pornography, and some religious materials they didn't want in the country. So they were pretty tight on that.
Did you have any experiences that you would consider life-altering in the war or after?
The war itself was, because you know, you've seen things happen. You know, people get killed, and you know one of the towers in Run had gone down, and some of my friends were there. That was a life-altering. You know, I had thought about them often, you know, about what changes were happening in their families at home, and you know, they were there serving and not complaining. They had a job, you know. I was ready to go when it was time to go. But I'll never forget that, I think.
Did you have any specific people that you served with who had a personal impact on you?
Yeah, we had Colonel John Berry was the commander at the time, the operation group commander, and General Short, you know, General Waldy. General Short went on to command in the Bosnia-Kosovo operations. Colonel Berry, I believe he went on to investigate the last shuttle crash. So yeah, they had quite an impact. I mean, they were generals who worked hard, colonels who worked hard, and I really gained a lot of respect for the officers there, because they were really working every day, long hours, and committed to doing everything they were asked to do and even more. They kept everyone informed, everyone underneath them. You've seen leadership at its finest. They were telling us what was going on and what did happen. Did we lose anyone? What could we do to prevent it? It was a really open door. I mean, it was from the boss to you. I mean, he didn't send out an email and say, hey, this is, he went around and told you. So both those generals are really good.
When you came back from the Middle East, do you feel like you were the same person as before you left?
No, I knew, you know, because I had seen some of the stuff that happened in Kuwait. I've seen some of the stuff on the Highway of Doom in Iraq. I've seen how we united as a force, how powerful the military was, how decisive we could be. So yeah, it changed me as a person. I didn't, kind of thought we could have been out of there sooner, but definitely thought I was proud to be part of the American force. I just thought it was a amazing operation. It was swift.
Did you win any important medals, ribbons, or coins when you were in combat?
Well, we got the Kuwaiti Service Medal, we got the National Service Medals, we got, each of us got some coins from the Kuwaiti government, silver coins. Got a command kudos as a person, for myself, for my job that I did. Got some nice letter of recommendations, good LOEs, and all I was looking for is just a job well done, and it was. And that's what all of our certificates had, a job well done.
What is an LOE?
Letter evaluations that actually they wrote in the command if they thought you did a good job. They wrote it and sent it back. They were optional forms, they didn't have to, but they actually wrote up many of us for our participation and the achievements we did while we were there. So it was kind of recognition for our base, our local command, excuse me, our local commanders to see. So.
How did the death of some of your fellow service members affect your outlook on the war?
That it was serious. It was it wasn't what you seen on TV. You know, it looks. You're watching on CNN. You know, a bomb hit a target or planes, being shot at. There's people on the ground who are putting them up there, and they're risking their lives, even though they're not right in the front lines, and then they lose their lives. They had to come home. You watch that on September 11th, and you see the plane coming in with caskets. And, that's someone's brother, someone's sister. And this changes you. It just makes you really realize the sacrifice you're making for being there. The chance you're taking, and how much is the cost of freedom. And that is, you think about it when you're in those positions, when you're over there, and if someone's shooting at you, you think about it.
It's a whole different story when somebody's shooting at you. You mentioned in your information that you have to develop and execute a war plan. Can you describe your responsibilities and the use of the operation you developed?
As we talked about earlier, I talked about, as we would sit down in a staff meeting, and all the pilots or the captains or majors who were flying that day, they would sit and the daily war plan would be going out to them. And this is our objectives for the day. So we had to compile that information and give it to them. And then they would decide how they were going to engage. And so that was pretty neat. You got to be, you knew what was going to happen that day, or what was supposed to happen.
Since you were given so many more responsibilities than the average enlisted soldier, did you end up having clashes with your officers over the right way to go about a mission or any projects that you worked on?
We had some heated debates, and not just me, but some of the enlisted were able to voice their opinion. Hey, this is what we saw, we read. This is, you need to look at this. Sometimes they knew something we didn't know, or we had information they didn't have, so you needed those exchanges, but it was always a give and take. And that was neat. I don't know if that was the same, it was for the Air Force it was that way. I don't know how it worked on the other services as much, but the operation groups, almost all Air Force, there's a couple of Navy pilots in there, but they were really, if we had an input, and we were in a position to give that input, they took it.
You also mentioned that you help different communities to recover from natural disasters. Can you elaborate on your role and the military's role?
Yeah. There was some natural disasters that we helped locally with, but there was Somalia, Rwanda, where we were supplying cargo planes over there with medical supplies, food supplies, and that was a humanitarian effort that also changed how you thought about America. You go and you see all these areas, and you see from the U.S. they got these packages, packaged in the U.S. and we're giving all this food away, and some people didn't get it. They had guards that were guarding the food, because it's just been pure chaos if you let them at it. And that was sad. Sometimes you came in with food, they thought you were coming in with food, and you just had medical supplies. And you could just see the disappointment or the sense of helplessness, because you weren't there for what they thought. That was a little different. Each one of those experiences.
How did seeing the victims of the famine in Somalia affect you?
Rwanda, probably more so with Rwanda. It was a I couldn't understand, for me personally, I couldn't understand why they weren't having the access to what they needed, the food. It seemed like they were a nation starving for no reason, because we would read stuff, and the warlords were taking food and supplies, and it was just a sad situation to see.
When you were stationed at Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington State, what kind of tests did you perform? What kind of tests did you perform? What was your responsibility?
I worked for the Chief of Safety, who worked for the base commander, so I had a real good job. I was also the N2IC of the command post, what they call the Crisis Action Team. And I used to be one of the shift supervisors, and we would set up, again, briefings for the commanders. We'd gather intel slides and put together a presentation so he would get a daily, what they call it, a daily situation report. And they would make decisions based upon that information that we gathered, and we'd have to send out certain information. And that would create more information back to us. And we would give a daily accountability for, like during September 11th, the no-fly, we had a cap over that no civilian airplanes would be in the air, only military airplanes. So that was one of the things we did. So again, I got a chance to be part of the process that was making decisions and affecting how the operation was going to work. It was a really big responsibility.
Can you describe the events of your day on September 11th, 2001?
Yeah, I can. The 9th of September was my birthday, the 10th was my brother's, and then on the 11th I woke up and my son was telling me that a plane had flew into the tower, the 747. I looked at the, watching on television, I said that had to be a small plane or otherwise the building would have come down. And as we're sitting there, I'm starting to get ready for work, and not thinking anything of it, and then an airplane flies in, and right from then I knew. Put on my pager, got my BDUs on, our battle dress uniform, and got ready for work. I went right to the command post, didn't even go to my normal job, because I knew that we were going to be engaged, and we had a job, and it went 24/7 there for a long time afterwards. But it was a scary feeling. I can remember being consumed by it, coming home and thinking about it, and worried that if it was going to happen again that day or the next day, or when it would happen again.
What were some of the precautions taken in order to ensure the safety of the base after 9/11?
Well, the base went down on a complete lockdown. Remember the kids at school, they went to school outside the base, and they were told they had to come home, and they came home on the bus, and guards came on the bus. It became real heightened. Every car was being checked coming in on the base. The kids were scared. Our operation went 24/7. All the active duty leaves were canceled, TDYs were canceled. If you were on TDY meaning you were left, you went to another base or went to another location temporarily, that was called a TDY. They called everyone who was on that status back to prepare to start sending troops wherever we needed to, either be to the towers, or to the Pentagon, or to a forward operating location. If we're going to fight, if we're going to bring the battle to them, we had to bring all those people back and prepare them. And it was a busy time. Real busy.
How did the attacks on September 11th change your life?
Well, I was ready to get out and couldn't get out. But it gave me some personal resolve that, you know, hey, we need to be ready to protect our freedom, and I was ready. I was willing to stay. I didn't know anyone who was complaining about staying. Life was going to be at home for a little bit, but we were all willing to stay there and make sure we did the right thing.
When you say ready to get out, you mean ready to retire?
I was ready to retire, yeah. I was retirement eligible, or close to retirement eligible.
How did you help to prevent future attacks on American ground?
I think, not just as a military, as an American, we started enforcing some of our going after the terrorism. We started going to Afghanistan, we started going to Iraq, and we prepared our troops to get there. But as an American, we started looking at some of the things that we thought were freedoms and willing to sacrifice those for the good of all. You can't go to a sporting event or to a concert or anything now without some security check, and become more security conscious. I think that's part of what we did in the military, become more security conscious around the world, not letting terrorists take a hold of us, and you know, get people back on planes, you know, making it where people felt safe to get back on a plane. There for about a month or two, we didn't let any plane go up in the air without, we had them grounded. But for about a month or two, we were flying all over the place, watching all these planes. It wasn't going to happen again. Not on our watch. I really believed it, and it did.
If you were reactivated in order to go back into the military, would you be willing to go and serve in the war on terror that we're now fighting in Iraq?
Yeah, it was. Every day I think about it still. You know, if the call came, I would get on, shave the beard off, and get ready to go. To lose a few pounds, but I'd be ready to go. And it wouldn't, no hesitation. It's something we need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.